Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Kevin Lau here for another Whiteboard Fireside Chat. And I wanted to do a follow-up video from the video I did I think it was last week or the week before. What do I do when I inherit an IRA? And we talked about the 10-year rule. We talked about the new rules around required minimum distributions during that 10 years. So just a refresher, if you have not watched the video, first of all, I'd recommend you go check that out. And second of all, if you just want a quick refresher, if the original owner of that IRA had passed away before the required beginning date, meaning they were not yet taking required minimum distributions, you are not subject to any required minimum distributions. You could elect to take zero the first year, zero the second year, delay everything until the end of the 10th year, and then take out a lump sum. That would obviously be a pretty significant tax bill, but you could do that theoretically. And then you have the other scenario where the owner died after the required beginning date. So maybe they were in their 80s or in their 90s, they were already taking required minimum distributions, and you as the beneficiary could elect to take those RMDs based on your life expectancy, or at least continue the minimum distributions that the original owner was taking, which would obviously be higher because their life expectancy would be shorter. I'm here to tell you, you might just want to ignore the 10-year rule altogether, okay, and have your own schedule, because you might get hit with a significant tax bill at the end of that 10th year if you're not careful. And I want to show you what I mean as we dive into the whiteboard today. So I got an Excel doc that I created, and there's a bunch of columns on here. So let me break this down. We've got, first of all, a couple of assumptions. We have the assumption that the original account owner died at 85 with $1 million, and let's say it's all in an IRA. It's all tax deferred. And we're also going to assume a hypothetical rate of return of 7%. Okay, so that 7% is very, very important as we go through this. So just remember that the account is not going to just sit idle earning zero. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to compound interest. We also have the beneficiary. Let's call him little Johnny, and let's say mom's Joan. So we have Joan is 85 and Johnny's 55. So Joan passes away at 85. She's taking her minimum distributions based on her life expectancy, and Johnny now has the choice. Okay, and by the way, Roberto and I, we've really tried to find we've tried to we've looked through all these different sources to really get clarity on this thing, and we do believe that if the original owner was taking required minimum distributions, the now new owner of the account, or that original beneficiary, so in this case Johnny, he can either take the distributions based on his life expectancy, which is right here, or he can continue based on mom's life expectancy over here. And that's what's known as at least as rapidly. So as you can see, the distributions, if he continued on mom's schedule, are going to be significantly higher. In that first year, it's roughly $65,000 versus his life expectancy is only $31,000 and some change. So, basically, if you are in a situation where you have to take RMDs during those 9 years before that final year, and let's say you want to just take the minimum possible, because let's say you're working for a period of time. Maybe you're 55 and you plan to work another 10 years. Well, hey, this is a perfect example. You might want to just take the minimum, and then when you retire that 10th year, then maybe empty the account a little bit more aggressively. Now, the problem is, because this account was compounding at 7%, if you just follow that single life expectancy stretch rule in that 10th year, look how much you have to take out of the portfolio. $1.4 million is a lump sum at the end of that 10th year. That's a pretty significant tax hit. Let's look at the at least as rapidly rule. That's hard to say. At least as rapidly rule. So in this case, you're not increasing your portfolio balance like you did in the single life expectancy, but you're kind of maintaining a little bit here. I mean, certainly over time it's going to go down, but in that 10th year, look what you have to take out. $795,000 is a lump sum. 795. So unless you're thinking, hey, in 10 years exactly, I know my taxable income is going to go to zero, and therefore it's the perfect time to take out a huge lump sum distribution. Well, even so, if you take out $1.4 million, you're going to be in the top tax bracket. That distribution is going to get crushed. Even the $795,000 distribution, that's going to get hammered. Okay, you're going to be at the 37% bracket plus state potentially, and plus Medicare surcharges, net interest income. You're going to get hammered. Okay, So you may not want to do that. And this is why I'm saying you might just want to ignore the 10-year rule altogether. Let's say you're in a position where you're maybe, you're not going to retire in 10 years. You plan to work until 70. So your income is going to be pretty smooth over those 10 years. The school of thought that I see a lot of times out there is, well, just take this $1 million, divide this guy by 10. That gives you 100K. Just take that out every year, and that way at the end of the 10th year, your account's going to be at zero. Well, not so fast. Look at this. Here's column 4. This is exactly that scenario. Take out $100,000 each year and then empty it at the end. Well, at the end of the ninth year, or I'm sorry, in that 10th year, you're going to have to take out a lump sum of $488,000. That's still pretty painful. Again, this assumes a 7% compounding. So if you're earning 5 or 4%, obviously these numbers are going to be significantly lower. But I'm just illustrating this to sort of say maybe a little bit more conservative than the stock portfolio and all stock portfolio. Maybe it's closer to a 60-40 or 70-30 balanced asset allocation. Okay, so automatically that school of thought is probably going to give you put you in a situation where you're going to have a big tax bill in that 10th year, and you may not want that. If your income is going to be pretty smooth over the next decade, you may want to do something like column 5. All right, so column 5, what it's going to do, I basically backed into it. Okay, I just had to do some plug and plays, and what I calculated was based on that initial $1 million portfolio. If you started at $124,645 exactly, and you earn 7% compounding each year on top of that, your final distribution is going to be pretty much that, 124,000 and some change. Okay. So if you really want a smooth ride from an income distribution perspective, you may want to do something like column 5 here, where you sort of back into how much you would need to take out, and with some sort of assumption with rate of return. That way in the 10th year, you're not getting hit with a big tax penalty. All right. So again, the RMD rules are important, and you may want to subject yourself to just those RMDs for a period of time. Maybe you plan on working for another 5 years, and you say, you know what, Kevin, totally understand this concept over here, but for the next 5 years, my income's going to be pretty high. So maybe from 55 to 60, maybe you do just take out the minimum. Okay. But then, and when you're 61, all of a sudden your taxable income goes down to zero, but now your portfolio balance is 1.2 million. Okay, so maybe what you do is you say, okay, over the next 4 or 5 years, now I'm going to take an equal distribution. Maybe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000 or $500,000, something, I'm sorry, $200,000, something along those lines, $250,000, something along those lines, where you can spread that income out a little bit more evenly over those final 4 years, so you're not getting hit with this significant taxable penalty at the end of that 10th year. Whatever it might be, customize it to your plan, customize it to your tax situation. And again, understand that expectations are going to change. This assumes, a static rate of return. We understand there's sequence of return risk. We also understand there's risk that tax rates might change as well. Maybe Tax Cuts and Jobs Act gets extended. Maybe it gets eliminated. And all of a sudden you're sitting here, in 2026, you're 57, and now you're paying a higher tax rate than you would have if you would have started taking those distributions a little bit more aggressively in the previous 2 years. Okay, so there's so many hypotheticals, so many unknowns. Don't beat yourself up on the perfect answer, but start a plan and review that plan on a periodic basis to ensure it still aligns with the current legislative code, tax code, as well as what the market is doing to your portfolio. So hope this helps everybody. And if you're liking the content, if you're finding value in what we're doing, make sure to like. Make sure to share this with a friend. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, because it allows us to impact more people and help more people, which is what we're all about here. So until next time, this is Kevin Lau signing off.